Have you ever considered how powerful your first impression truly is? Let's delve into this fascinating aspect of social psychology. It's an undeniable truth that first impressions are incredibly influential, and they're notoriously difficult to alter. Why might this be the case? Well, the human brain is an efficiency expert. To save time and energy, it quickly forms an initial judgment of new people we encounter. This happens within mere seconds of meeting someone. This quick assessment, often based on minimal information, tends to solidify in our minds and becomes the lens through which we view that individual. But here's the kicker. Despite being formed so rapidly and sometimes inaccurately, these first impressions are stubborn. Changing them is no small feat. Even when presented with evidence that contradicts our initial judgment, our brains tend to cling to the first impression. Astoundingly, our brains are wired to make snap decisions about people we meet, and changing that initial judgment is no easy task. Do you ever feel like everyone notices your every move? Let's delve into the captivating world of the spotlight effect. This is a psychological phenomenon where we tend to believe that we're always in the limelight, that people are constantly observing us more than they actually are. It's like living on a stage with an imaginary audience, scrutinizing our every action. The spotlight effect has a substantial impact on social anxiety and self-consciousness. It can make us overly cautious about our appearance, our words, and our deeds. We might spend hours perfecting our look, rehearsing conversations, or second-guessing our decisions, all driven by the illusion of always being under the watchful eyes of others. However, the reality is quite different. People are generally too consumed with their own lives to pay as much attention to others as we might think. So, next time you feel the weight of invisible eyes on you, remember, we often think we're the center of attention, but the spotlight isn't always on us. Have you heard of the bystander effect? It's a fascinating psychological phenomenon where people are less likely to offer assistance to a victim when others are present. You might think that the more people around, the more likely someone would step up to help, right? Well, not exactly. This counterintuitive behavior stems from a psychological process known as diffusion of responsibility. It's a bit like thinking, there are so many people here, surely someone else will help. The responsibility to act gets diluted amongst the crowd, leading everyone to think that someone else will take charge. This doesn't mean we're all heartless, far from it. It's just a quirk of our psychology, a reminder that even our noblest instincts can sometimes be skewed by the social dynamics around us. It's a fascinating, if somewhat unsettling, insight into human nature. In groups, we often diffuse responsibility, leading to less assistance for those in need. Ever wondered why good-looking people seem to have it all? This is a question that's puzzled many of us at some point. Well, a psychological concept known as the halo effect might just hold the answer. The halo effect is a cognitive bias, where our overall impression of a person, particularly their physical attractiveness, influences how we perceive their character. In essence, we tend to believe that attractive individuals possess more desirable personality traits and higher capabilities than their less attractive counterparts. For instance, we might perceive an attractive person as more intelligent, kind, and trustworthy, even though we don't have any concrete evidence to back up these assumptions. This bias can extend to various facets of life, from job interviews to social interactions, often leading us to make judgments based on appearances rather than objective facts. So remember, looks can be deceiving, as our brains often attribute positive qualities to those we find attractive. Ever found yourself justifying a decision you know is wrong? Welcome to the world of cognitive dissonance, the psychological phenomenon that keeps you up at night. Cognitive dissonance refers to the mental discomfort experienced when a person holds two or more contradictory beliefs, values, or perceptions at the same time. Imagine you're a dedicated environmentalist, but you just bought a gas-guzzling car because it was on sale. There's a clash between your values and your actions. This conflict leads to cognitive dissonance. It's like having two opposing voices in your head, each trying to shout louder than the other. So how do we deal with this discomfort? Well, we humans are pretty clever. We often change our attitudes or behaviors to reduce this discomfort. For instance, you might start carpooling or offsetting your carbon footprint in other ways to reconcile your actions with your environmental beliefs. To maintain consistency, we often adjust our beliefs or actions even when they contradict each other. Do you believe that everyone thinks the same way you do? If your answer is yes, then you've experienced the false consensus effect. This is a psychological phenomenon where we tend to overestimate how much other people agree with us. It's like wearing tinted glasses and assuming that everyone else sees the world in the same hue. This bias isn't limited to opinions or beliefs. It extends to our behaviors, our values, even our preferred pizza toppings. Here's the kicker. We're not just talking about a slight overestimation. Studies have shown that people often believe others share their views to a degree that's far beyond what's statistically probable. The false consensus effect can shape our interactions, relationships, and even our self-esteem. It can lead us to misjudge others, create conflict, and foster misunderstanding. It's a subtle, pervasive force that quietly shapes our social world. We often believe our views are the norm, but that's not always the case. So next time you're sure everyone agrees with you, remember the false consensus effect. It may just change your perspective. Ever encountered someone overly confident in their abilities? This brings us to the seventh psychological fact, the Dunning-Kruger effect. This fascinating cognitive bias is where individuals with low ability at a task overestimate their ability. It's like a novice singer believing they could outperform Adele or a beginner chess player thinking they could checkmate Magnus Carlsen. And you may wonder, why does this happen? It's because when we're not very good at something, we lack the knowledge to understand just how much we don't know. We're blissfully unaware of our incompetence, leading us to overestimate our abilities. This cognitive bias can have significant impacts on various aspects of life. It can lead to poor decision-making, relationship conflicts, and even societal issues when individuals in positions of power suffer from this effect. So the next time you feel supremely confident about something, take a step back and assess. Sometimes the less we know, the more confident we mistakenly become.